Hello again, everyone. We are going to make clove oil. You can buy clove essential oil. It's not difficult to find and it's not too pricey, but you can make your own buying cloves at Aldi's or somewhere else, and in the powder form or in whole clove form, they will last even longer than essential oils stored properly. And you can use them for not only baking, but different types of home remedies other than things you would use an essential oil for, like chewing on them in your mouth for a gum or tooth problem, and break them up into small dry pieces for a myriad of tinctures and poultices. So there's benefits to having the essential oil because it is handy and has many uses, but if you just stockpile powdered and whole cloves, it has much more versatility. So I have used 1/4 of a cup of ground cloves, and I'm going to pour it into my mason jar. Now, if I was using whole cloves, I would use 10 or 12. Cloves are pretty uniform in size. If you get a few more, it might be a bit stronger. So somewhere between 10 to 12. Now you're going to take your carrier oil. I like to use almond, coconut, or olive. Olive is actually cheapest right now, and it holds its liquid form. The coconut oil has such fluctuations with temperature that can be an issue with some recipes. I've used it in making clove oil, and it's not a problem unless I'm storing it in the cool, dry place and I get a solid, so I just set it out at room temperature, which can still be chilly, especially if you're in a shit hits the fan situation. Or I put it near the wood stove and I get it way too hot to use. I have to let it cool down and then catch it before it starts to harden again. So those are a few of the problems with coconut oil, which I love and use for lots of things. But to make an essential oil, I would just prefer using the olive oil. There's no exact measurement on this. You want to put in enough of your carrier oil, so just enough to be about 1 inch above your level of your cloves. And that will vary depending on if you're using whole cloves or powdered cloves. If you want to reduce the amount of carrier oil to save waste, you could take your whole cloves and then break them into 2 or 3 bits, or put them in a bag or a muddle like I have here. I use it a lot when I'm making my own home remedies. You can just put the cloves in here, stamp it around a little bit, and you're still going to have the same amount of the whole cloves, but they won't take up quite as much space to cover. I think it takes a little bit more of your carrier oil when you are covering up the powdered cloves. They tend to bunch up a little bit in the middle. So once you have your carrier oil in your either powdered cloves or whole cloves in your mason jar, you can put the lid on it immediately, but lots of times I'll just put my hand over it firmly and want to shake it up vigorously for about a minute. Make sure everything's mixed together really well. This is most important when you're dealing with powdered cloves, and sometimes I don't follow the rules exactly. I'm an Aquarius, so that happens. And I go ahead and give it a little stir when I'm dealing with the powdered cloves, just to make sure it's thoroughly mixed. And then I'll go ahead and I will put the lid on this and a ring, and I will secure it firmly. Make sure you kind of get your last drop. You don't want to pull a spoon out. That's the reason it doesn't recommend this if you're especially dealing with powdered cloves, because then you can lose a little bit. But I tend to go ahead and do close to a heaping amount just to make sure that you don't lose some from residue or when I break the rules, and stir. Put your lid and ring on here nice and tight and put it in a cool, dry place for about 14 days. I tend to shake mine 3 times a day, just get in the habit, morning, lunchtime, and dinner before bed. Give it a nice vigorous shake like I just did. And then you will have your clove oil. Now, you will need to strain this through a cheesecloth, coffee filter, a clean piece of cotton fabric. People have used flannel, and you just get a little bit of residue when you do that. A little bit more drips through than when you use cotton, which is not ideal, but you use what you have. But the straining is very important when you're dealing with the powder to make sure you get as much out as possible, and you just kind of hold it in your hand. You just keep squeegeeing back and forth, almost like you're milking a cow or a goat. You need to do the same thing if you are using whole cloves, but you will not have to work quite as hard because the cloves are going to stay compact, and you're already going to have taken the nutrients and vital parts for the oil out of the